giving it up, the Russians have just kept doing the same thing.
Bill Gerstenmaier, Associate Administrator for Space Operations. Bill, I'm going to go to the human side of this first. Mark Kelly, we talked to him earlier, Scott Kelly's brother. I can sense, even though he's a hardened shuttle commander, that this is an emotional time for him. How unique is this for one brother to see another off that will wind up joining up in orbit early next year?
Yeah, I think it's really special. We talk a lot about ourselves being part of the human spaceflight family, where we think of each one of us as a member, a family member. We grow close to the workers we work with every day, but I think there's also a special tie of someone that's really grown up as kids together, especially Mark and Scott growing up as boys together, and then to get a chance to see this activity here at the launch pad and to see his brother get ready to go fly and to think about his own training. He's in the middle of his training for the AMS flight, STS-134, so Mark's got that on his mind. He gets to see his brother fly, and then eventually he'll get to see his brother in space. So it's a pretty special event when you get to see your brother go fly and then go get to be with him on orbit and actually experience space station with all its glory together as a family, a real family.
Monday marked the 53rd anniversary of the launching of Sputnik, which started it all in 1957. We're 6 months shy of Gagarin's 50th anniversary of his launch, right here. How does that strike you?
It's amazing to me. I go out to the launch pad and I look at the swing arm, and on the swing arm it shows the symbols of each of the launches from the pad, and two of the special ones are the Sputnik launch and then Gagarin's launch. And that's just amazing to see that, and to see the engineering that went into this launch pad, to see the rocket installed, to see the teams work with the umbilicals and hook things up, and to think that the same basic philosophy was used way back when with Gagarin's flight is just phenomenal to me. And it's amazing to see the history, to see the continuation and how they continue to improve slowly over time, make incremental steps, but continue to make the systems better. And we look at this Soyuz, and on the outside it looks like the same Soyuz, but as we've heard and know that this has got the new control system in it, the new cockpit, it's a Soyuz 701, a new series Soyuz. So again, the progression changes and things continue to get better as they improve things and move towards the future.
While we're talking anniversaries, again on this same launch pad behind you, we're coming up on the 10th anniversary of the human occupancy of the International Space Station, Expedition 1. It's hard to believe it's been a decade. In your mind, how amazing has this journey been over the past 10 years to get the space station to where it is today, continued occupancy, unbroken, and the future that lies ahead?
I think it's pretty phenomenal when you think about it. We spent 10 years really assembling this wonderful research facility in space. And the dedication of the team, the drive, the hard times when we had Columbia, it was a tough time to figure out how we're going to keep crews on orbit and keep them safe. We were able to persevere through all that, continue through this period. I then look forward to the next 10 years. The next 10 years will be very challenging in the research environment. It's our challenge now and the team's challenge to focus on that research, to get ready to utilize this truly international, wonderful facility in space to gain research. So as amazing as the engineering accomplishment was over these past 10 years, I look forward to the research accomplishment in the future 10 years to even be greater. So I look to be here maybe 10 years later looking back, and we can marvel at what the space station has shown us, how it's helped people on the Earth, it's changed our perception, it has shown that space can be used for mankind. It's a facility, it's a research capability that will bear huge benefits to mankind on the Earth. So I look back to the past 10 years, but I look even harder to the 10 years in front of us, and the exciting time is in front of us. The research period will be every bit as exciting and yield real results for us here on the Earth.
And Bill, finally, Scott Kelly and Alexander Kaleri, Oleg Skripochka, they arrive on the station this weekend to begin a half year of some of the busiest activity that we will ever see, including visiting vehicles hither and yon. I mean, almost every week there's going to be some major activity. Your thoughts on how Expedition 25 and 26 will unfold in terms of its complexity?
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. We're kind of winding down the shuttle program, so we'll potentially see, the 2 more shuttle flights, maybe 3. And then those are exciting, but then the other flights, there's 17 flights to station next year, an extremely busy time in terms of vehicles arriving. I think the AMS coming to space station is another very unique piece of research on board space station that allows us to look at high energy particle physics, allow us to look back towards the Big Bang with a unique experiment that can only really be done on space station. It's also kind of surreal for me as we sit here at this launch pad and I watch this vehicle get erected today. I received a text message this morning from KSC. They're busy processing Discovery at KSC, getting it ready for its launch. They're just completed refueling activities there. They're hooking up umbilicals. So here we are, worlds apart. At Kennedy, we're getting our vehicle ready to go fly, a much more complicated vehicle, but here we are in Baikonur getting another vehicle to fly. So what a great time. That's what the year will represent. Many parallel activities occurring continents away, worlds away, but with a team that is focused both places on the same perfection, the same drive to do exactly, bring out the best of what they could do to make this space station, make our endeavors in space successful.
Mike Seferdini, International Space Station Program Manager. Mike, the Soyuz TMA-01M, modified Soyuz, now on the pad, getting ready for launch in the wee hours of Friday morning. Your thoughts as you watch the rollout today, and we're 6 months shy of Gagarin's 50th anniversary of his launch and the history that we're standing on.
Yeah, it is amazing to be here in particular because of this launch pad is the launch pad that Gagarin flew off of. It strikes me when I think about the fact that we're getting closer to the end of assembly and that we'll begin utilization. You know, we think of ourselves kind of slowing down our pace a little bit as we get ready to do utilization, and really this is kind of an indication of the way it's going to be a long term. In order to utilize ISS, we've got to fly off many launch pads around the world. We've got 17 flights in one year this year, and that's going to be almost the norm for us as a program in order to keep the ISS adequately supplied and get all the research done that we need to get done. So it's this is going to become commonplace around the world for us, I believe.
For Scott Kelly, Alexander Kaleri, Oleg, Skripochka, this increment that they're joining and the one that they'll be inheriting in late November, Expedition 26, busy time. Shuttles, visiting vehicles. Give us a sense of how busy the space station is going to be in a traffic pattern over the next 6 months.
Oh yeah, it's going to be incredibly busy. You know, we're not done with assembly yet. We still have to add the permanent stowage module we call the PMM on orbit. And then we have a major payload coming, the alpha magnetic spectrometer, that's going to show up in late February. So those two shuttle flights are part of the mix. Also, late October, we have a Progress. We have the crew, the 24 Soyuz crew, returning at the end of November. We've got Katie Coleman and Dimitri and Paolo flying up in December. Then we have HTV in January, another Progress, an ATV. We've got a couple of Russian segment EVAs at the first of the year and possibly one at the end of this year. All of that leading up to the STS-134 mission, where Scott's brother Mark will come up and they'll be together on orbit. So it's just a remarkably busy period for us.
And the 10th anniversary of the human occupancy of the space station is right around the corner. In fact, the day after Discovery launches on the STS-133 mission, November 2nd, will be the anniversary. 10 years ago, Expedition 1 launched from this same launch pad. It's almost hard to believe it's been a decade, and your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and remember, this is the beginning of Expedition 25, where we've already actually begun Expedition 25 the way we count. But the 25th Expedition crew, this is an amazing number of crews that have come to visit Space Station and actually live on board. There's been something on the order of 155 crews visit ISS. It's been an incredibly fruitful platform from that respect. And it's the human element that brings us all back home to us. And so I hope we have many, many more visitors to come.
And Mike, as the year winds down, your thoughts on what this year meant for Space Station, not only in terms of expansion of science, but to show through the pump module activity that transpired over the summer that you could fix critical spare parts when in a short period of time with all of that replanning that went on.
Oh yeah, and that's a very good point. Of course, we have really in our minds transitioned to utilization on board ISS. We've changed our whole focus in terms of when we manifest. It used to be we kept the systems guys would get a certain allocation and we'd protect that, and if they needed more they got it at the expense of utilization. Now we do exactly the opposite. Utilization flies and we work around their needs in order to operate ISS. But when something like a pump module fails, you have to stop what you're doing and replace it. And that was an amazing feat. We learned a lot. We took about 10% of the crew time that we had planned for research away, but since that time we've made up over half of that time back. And so even though we did the pump module, the team really turned to and found more efficient ways to get some of that research done, and that really is our focus. And so while to the outside world it looks like we were mostly just fretting about the pump, we were internally working very hard to make sure we got that time back that we took from utilization. So it does all work. It's an amazing effort by an incredible team around the world, but it does all work, and we will continue to do more and more research and learn more, discover more as the years go on.
Mark Kelly, Endeavor's commander for STS-134 next February in a very unique role here at the Baikonur Cosmodrome. Mark, you're here to see your brother launch to the International Space Station in the Soyuz rocket that sits behind you. Your thoughts as the hours count down to your brother's launch?
It's a pretty amazing place to be, a lot of history here. And, you know, to consider the fact that my brother's part of this and our family's out here, it's pretty exciting. You know, saw Scott yesterday, going to see him again today. He's feeling really good, and you know he's got a very busy mission ahead of him, so it's nice to get a chance to see him off.
Much has been made of the fact that twin brothers have the real potential of meeting up in orbit as respective commanders of a space shuttle and a space station. Did you have a chance to talk a little bit to Scott about that uniqueness? Yeah,
we've talked a little bit about it. It wasn't actually supposed to happen. I should have been up to station and back already on my flight. But he's going to launch in a couple days on his expedition, and then we'll see what happens with the launch of STS-134, whether we launch on time or not. And if we do, when I open the hatch, he'll be on the other side.
Now, you're on the same launch pad that Yuri Gagarin launched from almost 50 years ago. Your sense of history as you sit here and watch all this process unfold?
Yeah, this is an amazing place. You know, the fact that they've used the same launch pad for 50 years, where in the American space program, you know, we have several that we've, you know, demolished and rebuilt, and you know, so it's pretty interesting to know that, you know, every one of these rockets and every cosmonaut that's gone into space has gone off this pad. You know, it's a pretty special place.
You've seen shuttles roll out, you've seen your own shuttles roll out, but a comparative thought about the way the process works here as opposed to down at the Kennedy Space Center?
Yeah, so I've actually never seen the space shuttle roll out, even though, I mean, for me, the timing's never worked out. I'm going to try to do that for STS-134. Certainly the orbiter takes a lot longer to get to the launch pad. The Soyuz moves pretty quickly along the railroad track, and you know, they get out to the pad, and I think shortly they're going to erect it and put it into the vertical, and it's relatively, compared to what we do, is a very quick process.
Final question. This must be an emotional time for you and your family members who have traveled halfway around the world to watch Scott take off. Your thoughts as you've talked to your brother, his level of readiness to spend 6 months on the space station, and your thoughts as you see him off.
Yeah, he's absolutely ready for this mission. He's been training for this for a long time. He's got a very busy increment. A lot of vehicles arriving and departing, 2 space shuttles, a Progress, a Soyuz, ATV, HTV. He's going to have a very busy flight, so I think for him that's going to go very fast. And if everything goes well, it should be very satisfying. You know, my thoughts is, you know, I kind of know what he's going through. I've flown in space 3 times, never on the Soyuz, but it's exciting for him. You try to make sure you've done everything and you've thought of everything ahead of time. So he's kind of going through that process now to make sure, you know, you don't want to leave anything behind. You know, you get this opportunity once.
Any brotherly advice as he prepares to take off?
Well, I can't give him Soyuz advice, never having flown on the Soyuz. Just you know, general, you know, space flight thing. You got to make sure you're prepared. This is serious business. It's you know, it's difficult. It's very busy, and you really don't want to make mistakes. But he knows all that.